The warning was clear. The stars stretched endlessly in the dark void of space. Among them, the Zirac Dominion ruled over many worlds. They were powerful, feared, and ruthless. Their fleets crushed weaker civilizations, and their warriors knew no mercy. But there was one rule they had learned long ago. Never harm the children of Earth. It was not a law written in any galactic treaty. It was not enforced by any council. It was a warning, a whisper that spread across the cosmos. Those who ignored it had disappeared. Their fleets had been burned. Their homeworlds had turned silent. The Zirac Dominion knew the warning, but some did not believe it. A dangerous mistake. Deep within Zirac-controlled space, a group of warlords gathered in a dimly lit chamber. Their leader, General Tyrock, stood tall, his reptilian eyes gleaming with arrogance. "I am tired of this fear," he hissed. "Humans are nothing but flesh and bone. Yet we whisper about them, as if they are gods. We are warriors. We take what we want." The other warlords nodded in agreement. Tyrock continued, "We have taken slaves from every race. We have experimented on the young of countless species. And now, we take from Earth." There was silence. Some looked uneasy. One warlord, smaller but wiser, spoke up. "There is a reason we do not touch their young. Every empire that has tried is gone." Tyrock laughed. "Stories to scare fools. I say we prove them wrong." His ship, the Ravager, was already on its way. It had entered human territory, heading toward a small colony. A colony where children played under the warm sun, unaware of the doom approaching. The silent invasion. The Zirac ship moved like a shadow, its black hull absorbing light. It slipped past Earth's patrols, using stolen cloaking technology. No alarms sounded. No defenses fired. They landed outside the colony, near the school where human children laughed and ran across a field. They had no weapons, no armor, just innocent smiles. The Zirac moved fast, too fast. In minutes, they were gone. And with them, 12 human children vanished into the cold darkness of space. Earth's response. The news spread like wildfire. The United Earth Fleet received the distress call. On the bridge of the UES Vengeance, Captain Elias Drake stared at the report, his jaw tightening. The children were gone, taken by the Zirac. The warning had been broken. Drake turned to his crew. "Get me a secure line to the Zirac High Command." Minutes later, a flickering hologram appeared. A Zirac diplomat stood there, his scales shimmering under the artificial light. He smirked. "Captain Drake," the alien said mockingly. "What an unexpected surprise." Drake's voice was calm, too calm. "Return the children." The Zirac diplomat laughed. "You think you can order us, human? You are in no position to demand anything." Drake did not blink. His tone did not change. "This is your only warning. Bring them back. Now." The Zirac waved a clawed hand. "Or what? You will scold us." He grinned. "Do not mistake your luck in past wars as strength. The transmission cut. The Zirac had mocked Earth's final warning. And they had just made the biggest mistake in their history. The Vengeance launches. Alarms blared across Earth's fleet. The UES Vengeance, Earth's most advanced warship, roared to life. Engines burned bright as the massive battleship left orbit, heading toward Zirac space. Its mission was simple: find the children, destroy anyone in the way. Inside the warship, human soldiers prepared. These were not ordinary troops. These were the Ghost Marines, the deadliest warriors humanity had ever trained. They moved with precision, their weapons silent but deadly. One of them, Sergeant Kyle Grayson, checked his rifle. His expression was unreadable, his voice steady. "They took our kids. We take them back, no matter what." The Zirac warlords had no idea what was coming. A universe holds its breath. Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched. They had seen this before. They knew what would come next. A small alien trader whispered to his crew, "The Zirak are finished." A warlord of another empire shook his head. They did not listen. Now they will burn. Even the Zirak High Command, upon hearing that the vengeance was coming, felt something strange. Fear. For the first time, they feared humans. The warning was clear, but now, it's too late. The hunt begins. The UES Vengeance cut through the void of space like a silent predator. Its dark hull reflected no light, a ghost among the stars. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Soldiers moved with quiet determination, weapons checked and loaded. The air smelled of steel and ozone. Captain Elias Drake stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, stared at the holographic map of Zirak space. The enemy thought themselves untouchable, hiding behind their fleets and fortified worlds. They were wrong. Humanity had given them a chance, a single warning. They ignored it. Now, Earth's fury would be unstoppable. Tracking the shadows. Lieutenant Mira Vallon, the ship's intelligence officer, scanned the data feeds. She had spent years studying enemy movements, learning their tactics, finding their weaknesses. Her fingers danced across the console as she pieced together the path of the kidnappers. The Zirak ship used stolen cloaking tech, but they made a mistake, she said, voice calm. They left a radiation trail near the colony. It's faint, but it's there. Drake nodded. Where does it lead? Mira enhanced the map. A red dot blinked on the edge of known space. A Zirak outpost. Remote. Unregistered. They think it's hidden. Drake's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. They think wrong. First contact. The Vengeance arrived at the outpost in silence. From a distance, it looked small and unimportant. A metallic station drifting near a dying star. But inside, Zirak forces operated in full strength. Unaware. Drake turned to his strike team. No mercy. Get the location of the children. Leave nothing behind. The Ghost Marines deployed. Their drop pods slammed into the outpost like meteors, crushing steel floors on impact. Before the Zirak even knew what was happening, the Marines were inside. Silent, precise, deadly. Sergeant Kyle Grayson led the charge. His squad moved through the station like shadows, cutting through guards with brutal efficiency. The Zirak had expected loud, aggressive invaders. Instead, they faced ghosts in the dark. In the command center, a Zirak officer scrambled for an alarm. He never reached it. A single silenced shot ended his life. Grayson grabbed a trembling scientist by the throat. Where are the children? The Zirak gasped. They were moved. We only keep prisoners here. The real lab. It's deep in Dominion space. Grayson's grip tightened. Coordinates. Now. The Zirak obeyed. The Marines planted charges. As they extracted, explosions ripped through the station, tearing it apart. The Vengeance pulled them in just as the outpost collapsed into fire and metal. A deadly realization. On the bridge, Drake analyzed the new intel. His expression darkened. The children weren't just taken for ransom, Mira said, reading the decrypted files. Her face was pale. They were taken for experimentation. The room went silent. Kyle Grayson clenched his fists. What kind of experiments? Mira hesitated. Then she said it. They're trying to figure out why human children are different. Drake exhaled slowly. He had suspected as much. Humanity had always been a mystery to the galaxy. They adapted too fast. They survived the impossible. Even their young held a resilience no other species possessed. And now, the Zirak wanted to unlock their secret. Drake's voice was cold. How much time do we have? Mira checked the files. Her stomach turned. The experiments begin in 3 days. The chase begins. The crew of the Vengeance did not sleep that night. Engines burned hotter. Weapons were prepped. The mission had changed. This was no longer just a rescue. This was an act of war. The Zirak thought they had outsmarted humanity. They thought they could break human children, study them like lab animals. They would soon learn the truth. Humans do not break. They fight. And when Earth comes for its own, nothing survives. The first strike. The UEA's vengeance sliced through the black void of space, its engines burning with quiet fury. The Zirak had taken human children, breaking the unspoken rule that had kept the galaxy in balance. Now they would learn what it meant to cross that line. Time was against them. 3 days until the Zirak began their experiments. 3 days until innocent lives were put through horrors beyond imagination. Captain Elias Drake stood at the command deck, eyes locked on the holographic star map. The destination was marked. Zirak Research Facility. Black Zone. A fortified station, hidden deep in Dominion territory. A death trap. Drake turned to his crew. We hit them fast. We hit them hard. We'd bring our kids home. The hunt was over. Now it was time for war. The enemy's den. The Zirak Research Station loomed in the darkness, orbiting a dying red sun. Its jagged metal exterior was lined with turrets, patrol ships circling like vultures. Inside, the atmosphere was cold, sterile. Scientists moved between glowing monitors, their reptilian eyes flickering with curiosity. In the center of the lab, 12 human children sat in a sealed chamber, their small faces pale but defiant. Electrodes were attached to their skin, monitoring their vitals. A Zirak scientist, Director Scareth, observed them with fascination. These creatures are different, he muttered, studying the data. Their minds are resistant. Their bodies heal faster. And their eyes, there is something in them. Another scientist hesitated. The humans have always warned us not to touch their young. Scareth laughed. Let them come. What can they possibly do? Outside, in the darkness of space, the answer arrived. The first strike. The vengeance decloaked, its massive cannons lighting up the void. A single blast from its main railgun tore through the station's outer defenses. Zirak alarms screamed as debris exploded into the void. The human warship did not stop. A second shot shattered the docking bay, sending Zirak fighters spiraling into fire. Soldiers scrambled to respond, but it was already too late. The Ghost Marines were inside. The wrath of Earth. Sergeant Kyle Grayson led the charge, moving like a shadow through the corridors. His Marines followed in perfect formation, silent, precise, unstoppable. A Zirak patrol turned the corner. 5 of them. Grayson didn't hesitate. Pop, pop, pop. 3 fell before they even raised their weapons. The last 2 were down before they could scream. No wasted movement. No wasted bullets. The Marines pushed forward. Every hallway was a battlefield. The Zirak fought desperately, but they were unprepared. They had taken children, expecting a slow diplomatic response. They got a storm of vengeance instead. Inside the lab. Alarms blared inside the research center. Scientists panicked, their data screens flashing red. Director Scareth bared his fangs, eyes wide. They shouldn't be here yet, he hissed. Hold them off. Stall them. A Zirak officer barked orders. Reinforce the labs. Move the children tow. Boom. The reinforced doors exploded inward, sending Zirak bodies flying. Smoke curled into the lab, followed by the heavy boots of Ghost Marines. Grayson stepped forward, his rifle aimed at Scareth's head. Step away from the kids. Scareth snarled, backing away. The other scientists froze in terror. The children, still strapped to machines, looked up in shock. One of them, a boy no older than 10, whispered, "I knew you'd come." Grayson's voice was steel. Always. The Marines rushed to free the children. The mission was almost complete. Then, a deep rumble shook the station. A Zirak warship had arrived, and it was preparing to wipe the station from existence. The race against time. Captain Drake's voice crackled over the comms. Enemy reinforcements incoming. You have 5 minutes. Grayson cursed. Everyone. Move. The Marines scooped up the children, carrying them toward the extraction point. Gunfire echoed through the corridors as Zurich reinforcements tried to cut them off. They failed. The humans did not slow down. Explosions rocked the station as the Vengeance unleashed another devastating barrage. The walls shook, lights flickering. As the Marines reached the hangar, the last group of Zurich guards blocked the exit. They raised their weapons, but hesitated. The leader of the Zurich forces saw the look in the human soldier's eyes. It was not anger. It was promise. A promise of total destruction if they fired one more shot. The Zurich hesitated for 1 second too long. Grayson didn't. His bullet found the enemy commander's skull. The Marines rushed onto the dropships, lifting off as the station began to collapse. Above, the Vengeance opened fire on the incoming Zurich warship, its cannons turning the enemy vessel into a fireball of twisted metal. Seconds later, the station itself imploded, torn apart by the force of Earth's wrath. The children were safe. But the war was just beginning. The aftermath. On board the Vengeance, the children were given blankets and medical care. They were scared, exhausted, but alive. Drake knelt beside a young girl, her face smudged with soot. "You're safe now," he said gently. She looked up at him, her small hands clutching his sleeve. "Are they gone?" Drake's expression hardened. "No, but they will be." The Zurich Dominion had crossed the line, and Earth's response was not over. Not yet. Entering the lion's den, the UES Vengeance soared through hyperspace, its engines humming like the growl of a predator. Inside, the crew remained silent. There was no celebration, no relief. The children were safe, but the mission was far from over. Because the war had just begun. The aftermath of a mistake. Deep within the Zurich Dominion, the High Council sat in uneasy silence. A darkened chamber, filled with the most powerful warlords and politicians of their empire, had become a place of whispers and fear. A transmission played before them, footage from the destroyed research station. Zurich soldiers cut down in seconds. The most elite warriors slaughtered like prey. Human Marines moving like ghosts, taking back their young without mercy. The recording ended. No one spoke. Then one of the oldest council members leaned forward. His yellow eyes were cold, his voice a low hiss. "We warned you." General Tyrok, the warlord responsible for the attack, slammed his fist on the table. They were weak. He snarled. They should not have been able to. They did. Another council member interrupted. And now, they are coming. Silence. Tyrok's claws curled into a fist. Then we make them regret it. He pressed a command into his wrist device. At that moment, across the Dominion, Zurich warships mobilized. Earth had responded with fury. Now, the Zurich would answer in kind. A war that cannot be stopped. Back aboard the Vengeance, Captain Drake stared at the galaxy map. The Zurich fleet was on the move. "They're not backing down." Miravelin, the intelligence officer, murmured. "They're preparing for war." Drake exhaled slowly. "Then we bring the war to them." But before he could issue orders, an alert flashed across the screen. Incoming transmission. Origin. Zurich High Command. Drake's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." A holographic image appeared. General Tyrok. The alien warlord sneered. "Human, you have made a grave error. The children were a misunderstanding. But you have slaughtered our warriors, destroyed our station. If you surrender now, we may allow your kind to live." Drake's expression didn't change. He simply said 2 words. "No." Tyrok growled. "Then we will see how long your people last." The transmission cut. Drake turned to Mira. "Where's their fleet heading?" She pointed to a blinking marker. "They're gathering near the Nexus Rift. If we intercept them there, we might stop the invasion before it starts." Drake's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "We're not stopping it." He looked at his crew. "We're ending it. The battle begins. The Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace near the Nexus Rift, a chaotic region of space filled with shifting asteroid fields and gravitational storms. But that wasn't the danger. The Zirak Armada was waiting. Dozens of warships, their dark hulls gleaming under the distant starlight. Their weapons hummed, already locking onto the lone human vessel. A Zirak commander's voice boomed through the comms. "Earth ship, you are outnumbered. Surrender now or be destroyed." Drake's response was immediate. "All batteries, fire." The Vengeance struck first. Its main railgun sent a tungsten round tearing through the nearest enemy battleship, cutting it in half like paper. Before the Zirak could react, the Vengeance's torpedoes slammed into their fleet, turning metal and flesh into fire and debris. But there were too many. The Zirak ships swarmed the Vengeance, unleashing a storm of plasma fire. Shields flared, metal groaned. The ship shook violently, alarms screaming across the bridge. Mira's hands flew across the console. "Shields at 40%. We can't hold against all of them." Drake's jaw clenched. Then his gaze hardened. "We won't have to." He tapped into the command panel and sent a single encrypted message. A signal. A summon. "The monsters have arrived." For a moment, the Zirak thought they had the upper hand. Their ships surrounded the lone human vessel, weapons primed for the killing blow. Then, space ripped apart. Hundreds of human warships dropped out of hyperspace. They had been waiting, hiding, tracking every move. And now, they struck. The Zirak Armada never stood a chance. Earth's fleet moved with precision and fury, their weapons shredding through Zirak defenses like they were made of paper. One after another, Zirak warships exploded, their mighty empire crumbling in real time. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Drake watched the battle unfold. His expression was unreadable. Sergeant Kyle Grayson, standing beside him, let out a breath. "We just started a war, didn't we?" Drake didn't look away from the destruction. "No," his voice was quiet, but absolute. "We just finished one. The end of the Zirak." By the time the battle ended, the Zirak fleet was gone. Those who survived fled. The once mighty Dominion was shattered. Across the galaxy, other empires watched in silence. The message was clear. Earth's children are off limits. Forever. Final scene. Days later, back on Earth, the rescued children stepped onto their home soil once more. Families reunited. Tears fell. But something had changed. The galaxy knew now. Mess with Earth's young, and you don't just face war. You face extinction. As the last Zirak warlords went into hiding, a single message echoed through the stars. A warning. A promise. Never again. The wrath of humanity. The Zirak Dominion was broken. What was once an empire of power and terror now lay in ruins, its fleets scattered, its warlords either dead or fleeing. But Earth was not finished. The Zirak had not just invaded human space. They had stolen children. And for that, there could be no forgiveness. The fall of the last warlords. Far from the Nexus Rift, in a hidden corner of space, the remaining Zirak warlords had gathered on a shadowed planet. They had once been proud, ruling over entire star systems. Now, they hid in fear. General Cyrock stood at the center of the war table, his claws digging into the metal surface. His eyes darted across the holographic battle report, showing the massacre of their forces at the rift. This cannot be," he growled. "The humans should not be this strong." Another warlord, smaller and more cautious, hissed, "They were strong the moment we took their young. You were warned. We were all warned." Cyrock slammed his fist on the table. "Cowards. If we strike now, we can still." A deep rumbling sound cut him off. The warlords turned their reptilian eyes toward the dark sky above. Something was coming. The ground shook. A deafening roar split the air. Then, from the black void above, they arrived. Earth's warships. Hundreds of them. Silent. Unstoppable. They did not send a warning. They did not demand surrender. They simply fired. Planetary annihilation. The first barrage of orbital railgun strikes shattered the outer defenses of the warlord's hidden base. Explosions rippled across the landscape, turning metal fortresses into firestorms. Zyrak warriors, once proud conquerors, fled in terror as the sky itself rained destruction upon them. And then, the dropships came. Thousands of Earth's elite Ghost Marines descended onto the burning battlefield, their armor gleaming under the fires of destruction. Sergeant Kyle Grayson led the charge. His boots hit the scorched ground, rifle raised, his voice calm and deadly. Find them. End them. The Zyrak warlords tried to run, but there was nowhere left to go. One by one, they were hunted down, their armies crushed, their escape ships blown out of the sky. Cyruk himself fought to the bitter end, screaming as he fired his plasma blade against the human invaders. But in the end, he was just another body among the ruins. Humanity did not negotiate. They eradicated. And when the final warlord fell, Earth's soldiers stood among the wreckage, watching the flames consume what was left of the Zyrak dominion. Grayson looked up toward the night sky, where the UES Vengeance hovered like a god of war. Mission complete. The final broadcast. From Earth's fleet, a single message was sent across the galaxy. It was short, cold. Let this be the last lesson. Our children are not to be touched, ever again. It was not just a warning. It was a declaration. The galaxy listened. The galaxy remembered. And from that day forward, the stars knew a truth written in blood and fire. Mess with Earth, and you will not live to regret it. The Zyrak panic. The Zyrak dominion, once an empire of war and conquest, was now a graveyard. Their fleets had been torn apart. Their warlords had been hunted down. Their hidden strongholds had been reduced to dust. But the war was not truly over. Because across the galaxy, in the shadows of distant worlds, the survivors of the Zyrak ruling class trembled. They had once called humanity weak. Now, they whispered another word. Extinction. The last council meeting. In a darkened bunker on a dying moon, the final remnants of the Zyrak High Council gathered. There were only 5 left. They sat in a room that once commanded armies of thousands. Now there were only scattered warships and empty promises. One of them, a frail and aging Zyrak elder, stared at the holographic reports of their ruined empire. The humans. They didn't just defeat us, he whispered. His claws shook as he scrolled through footage of the massacres, the burning warships, the dead warlords. They erased us. Another council member, his voice thick with disbelief, hissed, "This is impossible. No species should be this relentless." A third slammed his fist against the table. "We must retaliate. We still have weapons. We still have warriors. We must strike back before." A warning blared across their screens. A message. From Earth. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, with shaking claws, one of the council members opened the transmission. A hologram flickered to life, revealing Captain Elias Drake aboard the UES Vengeance. His voice was calm, cold, final. "The war is over. Your empire is over." The Zyrak leaders stiffened, watching the humans' piercing gaze. Drake continued, "Your kind stole something precious, and you were given a single warning. You ignored it." His voice lowered, but somehow it felt heavier. "We do not give second warnings." The Zyrak Council sat in horrified silence. They had nothing left. No fleets, no reinforcements, no future. Drake leaned forward, his gaze unchanging. "This is your choice." His voice was barely a whisper now. "Vanish, fade from history, live in exile, where you will never harm another human again." A pause. "Or," one of the Zyrak leaders finally croaked. Drake's eyes darkened. "Or we finish what we started." The transmission cut out. Silence filled the chamber. And in that silence, the Zirek leaders made their decision. They ran. Their remaining ships fled to the furthest corners of space, hiding like rats in the void. The mighty Zirek Dominion, once a feared empire, had become a scattered memory. They had gambled against Earth, and they had lost everything. The galaxy watches. The war was over, but its echoes spread far and wide. Across the known universe, alien empires watched in stunned silence. The Zirek had been a powerhouse, a force that had dominated for centuries. And yet, in mere days, humanity had annihilated them. For generations, Earth had been seen as newcomers to the galactic stage. Now, they were something else entirely. Whispers spread through the stars. Humans are not like the others. They don't wage war. They end it. Never, ever, touch their young. It was no longer just a warning. It was now a law of survival. The aftermath. On Earth, the rescued children were finally home. They had been through horrors, but they were safe. They would heal. They would grow. And they would never forget. Neither would humanity. The war was won. The Zirek were no longer a threat. But Earth's message to the universe remained. Never test humanity's limits. Because when you cross that line, you don't get a second chance. The final warning. The war was over. The Zirek were no longer an empire. No longer rulers. No longer anything but fragments of a broken past. Yet the echoes of their downfall rippled through the stars. Every empire, every warlord, every species watched in silence. The galaxy had known conquest. It had known destruction. But never had it witnessed vengeance like this. And now, they understood. You do not touch Earth's children. Ever. The last of the Zirek. On the edge of the known universe, a crippled Zirek warship drifted among the wreckage of their fallen fleet. Inside, the last survivors huddled in the dark, their bodies weak, their scales dull from exhaustion. The once mighty General Cyrok was now a broken creature, his claws trembling as he stared at the holographic transmission looping on repeat across the galaxy. Captain Elias Drake's final words. Vanish, fade from history, or we finish what we started. Cyrok had been a warlord, a conqueror. Now he was a ghost, a relic of an empire that no longer existed. One of his last officers spoke, voice hollow. What do we do now? Cyrok did not answer. There was nothing to say. The Zirek were no longer warriors. They were fugitives, hunted, forgotten, extinct in all but name. And so, without another word, the last of the Zirek fled into the abyss of space, vanishing into the black void where no empire would claim them. Their story was over, and Earth had written the final chapter. The quiet before the storm. On Earth, the war had ended. The children had returned home. But deep inside the United Earth Fleet's command center, something else was happening. Captain Elias Drake stood before a council of Earth's highest-ranking leaders. Admirals, generals, scientists, diplomats. The war had proven what humanity was capable of. But it also raised a question. Drake's voice was calm, measured. We have been seen. The council members remained silent. They knew what he meant. For too long, humanity had been just another species, a rising power in the galaxy. Now, they were something else. Other empires would think twice before crossing Earth. But some would not. A scientist spoke carefully. We know the Zirek weren't the only ones watching. Drake nodded. They never are. The galaxy had learned fear. But fear does not always bring peace. Some would see Earth as a threat. Others would want to test them. Drake's eyes narrowed. Let them try. A message to the stars. Across the galaxy, Earth sent out a final transmission. A single message. Not a threat. Not a warning. A fact. It was broadcasted across every major trade hub, every warlord's fortress, every alien government. The words were simple. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But harm our own and we will erase you from history. This is your first and only warning. The message was clear. A new balance had been set. Earth would not be an empire. It would not be an oppressor. But it would never be a victim again. Final scene. A shadow watches, far beyond human space, in a hidden system where no human had ever set foot. A lone figure stood before a massive galactic map. The war with the Zirac had changed everything. Earth was no longer just another race among the stars. They had become something greater, something to fear. The figure watched the transmission replay again. A low, thoughtful whisper escaped their lips. They were right to be afraid. A pause. Then a smile. But I wonder just how far humanity is willing to go. The screen flickered, showing something new. Not the ruins of the Zirac. Not the scattered remnants of a dead empire. Something else. Something watching Earth in return. The stars were vast, and Earth's story was only just beginning.